Hello everyone. Today I'm going to be changing the spark plugs in my 2001 Isuzu Rodeo with the 3.2 liter engine. To give you a little bit of background, if you haven't watched my other videos, I've done a lot of maintenance on this recently in the last year and a half or so, and it's still running fairly rough, so the spark plugs is the next step I'm going to try. I'm kind of tired of throwing money at this thing. It's not running horrible, but it's just really sluggish, it seems like, at times. I thought maybe the catalytic converter was clogged, but I just had a shop take a look at that. They said it seemed to be pretty clear. So anyway, some of the things that I've already done are fuel filter, new fuel pressure regulator, all new injectors. I had the intake off about 10-11 months ago. All new intake manifold gasket, clean the EGR tube and valve. So I've done a lot to this, and it's still not running the way I think it should. So these plugs aren't that old. They've probably got about 25,000 miles on them. But you know, I know that the engine leaks some oil too, burns some oil, so possibly the plugs are fouled. So I'm going to give this a shot and see what happens. So anyway, without further ado, let's dive into it here. Obviously, the first thing I'm going to want to do is remove this engine cover. It just has a hose connection there that clips onto that plastic clamp, and then there's two studs that hold this on. You can just lift it up out of the way, expose the top of the engine, just get it out of the way of the coil, so we don't really need to do anything under here. Obviously, all your plugs are over here, but that just gives us more room to work. And the next thing I'm going to do, just to be safe, is disconnect my negative battery cable, and then we'll get started. So let me do that and we'll move along. Alright, I've got the negative battery cable disconnected. That just takes a 10 millimeter socket. So now we can go ahead and get started. This engine has a coil unplug setup, so each one of these devices is an ignition coil. It fits down over top of the spark plug and sends the electricity to the spark plug. So we need to remove each one of those, and then it has a long tube attached to it that will pull out with the coil. So first things first, we need to disconnect the coils. Each coil has an electrical connection here. It has a little tab on top that you can lift up like that. If you lift it up with your thumb and then pull away, it will slide out. Now, as you can see, I've got mine numbered from a previous repair. You know, you can definitely label these so you don't mess them up, but because of the way the wiring harness is, it would be really difficult, if not impossible, to hook these up incorrectly, just because of where each coil connection branches off the wire loom. You know, you really don't have enough slack to reach this to any other coil. But anyway, you can label them if you want to. I'm going to go ahead and disconnect all of those. I'll catch the other side in a second. But essentially, to remove the coils, I'm just going to do them one at a time. Take the coil out, put the pull the plug, put the new plug in, and then put the coil back. If I remember correctly, all these coils are the same, with the exception of this coil here, the cylinder closest to the brake booster on the driver's side. I believe that coil has a boot that's a little bit longer than the others. My memory is a little bit fuzzy about exactly what the difference is, but I do know that this one is slightly different. So if you pull all the coils at the same time, just make sure you label which one goes on this cylinder. All the others should be identical. I try to put mine back in the same cylinder that they were in before. Doesn't really make that much of a difference, but I figure if I'm trying to diagnose a problem, I'd like to keep things as close to consistent as possible so that I can try to narrow things down later if this doesn't help. So anyway, to remove the coils, you simply need a 5/16 nut, or suppose you could use the Phillips head screwdriver. I'm going to use a 5/16 socket to take out the 2 screws on either side, and the coil will pop out. I think I'm going to start with this one back here though, because it's the most difficult to get out, just because of all the lines back here, as well as the brake booster kind of gets in your way for especially for the screw on the back side. I think in the past I've used a little stubby socket like this with an adjustable head on it, so that's what I'll try now. I'm going to start with that one first, get that out of the way, and then the rest of them should be smooth sailing. So let me go ahead and pull those 2 screws out, and we'll get the coil removed. Okay, I've got the 2 screws holding this coil removed, and I did end up using my little stubby socket like that with a 5/16 socket. And I've got both of them out now, so I just need to lift up and here it kind of pop loose. And you just have to finagle this thing out, and you can see the tube, the boot, that goes down over the end of the spark plug. So that goes all the way down through the valve cover into the top of the cylinder to the spark plug. So we want to set this aside. And now we need to get our socket with a spark plug socket on the end of it. I have to use an extension down through the tube. And I think in the past I've had to drop the spark plug socket down, then stick the extension on, then put the socket on, just because there's not enough angle to go in that way. So let me get set up, and then I'll show you that process. Alright, so I've got my spark plug socket, which if you're not familiar with that, all it is a 5/8 socket with a rubber sleeve inside. I don't know if you can see that, but essentially that rubber sleeve will grip the top of the spark plug so that when you pull it out, the spark plug comes with the socket and doesn't get left down in there where you have to try to fish it out. So I'm going to drop that down the spark plug tube like that, and then I've got my extension. I don't know if, actually I'm going to try the shorter extension first. This guy. No, that one's too short. Let's see if I can get the longer one in there. Yep. Alright. Now it's engaged with the spark plug socket, and I think it's seated down on top of the spark plug. So now I've got to connect my wrench to this and back it out. So that's going to require 2 hands, but you know, lefty loosey, just like any other bolt basically. Just back it out, and we'll take a look at the plug when we pull it out. Alright, I've got the plug loose, so now I'm going to try to pull it out. See if I can get the whole assembly out. Nope. The socket stayed down in there with the plug, so I have to grab my magnet and pull that out really quick, and then we'll take a look at the plug. Alright, so I've got the plug out, and it actually doesn't look that bad. And I checked the gap was good. If you've not changed plugs before, spark plug gap refers to the distance measured between the end of the center electrode and this outer electrode. You have to have that gap precise, or the spark doesn't perform as designed for the engine, and you can get misfires or pinging, or just bad ignition. So to check it, you use a gap tool, which is essentially just a tapered, like a feeler gauge almost. See if you can see the there you go, you can kind of see the numbers on there, but gives you gradients, and it's tapered, so you stick this in between the electrodes on the plug and slide the plug over and determine the gap that way. If you look on the placard here under the hood, it shows a gap of 0.04 inches. So I don't know if you can see this, but that's that line right there on my gauge. So when I install all the new plugs, I need to check them first. If Here's my new plug. It's a Denso double platinum. I believe this is the manufacturer recommended plug. I've read some varying opinions on whether or not other manufacturers' spark plugs perform well in these engines. Some people swear they don't, other people swear they do. I know for a fact that the plugs I'm currently running are not these Densos. I believe they're another manufacturer's cross-reference plug, so they should be in the same heat range and have the same characteristics. But anyway, I'm going to go with the OEM plugs here. So let me pull this out of the box and we'll check the gap and we'll be ready to install it.